You're listening to Building Bold Connections, a podcast where we explore the creative ways business leaders have solved professional challenges to gain success and build net worth from their network. On today's episode, we have the pleasure of speaking with Troy Felder, Regional Senior Human Resources Business Partner with McKesson. Here is episode 4 of Building Bold Connections.
Welcome to Building Bold Connections. I'm your host, Tyra Burton. On today's episode, we have the pleasure of speaking with Troy Felder, Regional Senior Human Resource Business Partner with McKesson. Welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Excellent. Thanks for having me so much, Tyra. Really looking forward to our discussion.
I can't wait because you have just the most amazing transition in terms of your career. You started in retail, but you ended up in HR. Can you tell us about that journey and that led you to that shift?
Certainly. A proud graduate of the University of South Carolina. Started initially as a marketing major at South Carolina. At that time, you had to also declare a minor. Mm-hmm. And so human resources, not sure how I stumbled upon it. That's what I declared. I enjoyed the coursework. It actually led to a double major. So I graduated with a dual bachelor's degree in marketing and human resources. And it was a finance professor that also instilled in me the benefits of getting a graduate degree. And I knew that I wanted to get that graduate degree in human resources. And so, kind of fast forward, trainee program that I actually secured before I even walked the stage at the University of South Carolina, and then went on to get my advanced degree in MBA in HR management. But for me, it really was a matter of letting my leaders know, because I worked for Sherwin-Williams Paint Company at the time.
Right.
And my district manager really volunteered and voluntold me for so many things outside of retail management, but it helped me build my career, build my resume, I should say, to prepare me for that initial opportunity in human resources. And it was with Sherwin-Williams.
It seems like you were mentored from the very start. Can you talk about how important mentoring is and has been for your career?
That's a great point. And it is very important. It was important to my career. It's actually a big part of what I do now as a mentor. But as I think back to my time, Mike Davis was his name. Mike Porter was his name. That was my mentor at that time. He actually gave me these opportunities around onboarding, around training, talent acquisition. I actually would recruit for other stores. What he said, Troy, said, I want them all. I want you to hire everybody for the entire district. They'll come through your store. They'll be there 2 or 3 months, and then we'll send them to someone else. And they'll be ready to do what they needed. But mentorship is so huge. And I think there's a difference between formal and informal mentorship.
Yes, absolutely.
Because here at Kennesaw State University, maybe it's going to be at a Sherwin-Williams. They're going to have a formal program for mentorship. But my connection with Mike was informal. There wasn't structure. We didn't meet every 2 weeks and have a set agenda. But when there were things that I wanted to discuss, I knew that I could ping him. Well, there wasn't pinging then, but I knew that I could call him or text him to talk those things through outside of store operations, but more so about leadership development.
So somebody who's starting off in their career, how would you suggest they find that kind of informal mentorship?
That's a great question. It can be inside the organization like it was in my case. But oftentimes it could be someone that you're looking for in terms of role, in terms of experiences, in terms of career level. And so, if you think about it from a student perspective, I would lean to professors. Again, I mentioned my finance professor that really, not only did she talk about the benefits of getting an advanced degree and having 1 to 2 years of experience before going to get that degree. But she also talked about the benefits of having a good mechanic and how much money that can save you in life because you can trust that person's not going to try to get over on you. But in terms of seeking mentors, I think it's really important to make sure that you identify and connect with that person on a personal and professional level, and also make it mutually beneficial. You shouldn't only reach out to that individual when you have a question or concern.
So that really touches on how can you be a good mentee? Because obviously you were.
Yes, it has to be rewarding. It has to be a two-way street. I think oftentimes I'm more inclined to get closer to my mentees when they check in, when they don't have a question,
Right.
when they're not interested in an opportunity that I may be connected to. And so those are the things that I look for. So to be a good mentee, you have to, one, show appreciation. You have to be present. You have to seek advice and then act on that advice. I think it has to be demonstrated, because then that mentor is going to want to continue to reciprocate that relationship when they understand that you're listening, synthesizing, and acting on the things that they have suggested.
And I think that building of relationships is so important and such a part of HR. So can you tell us now, we're going to skip forward a little bit, what you're doing in your job as the Regional Senior Human Resource Business Partner at McKesson? What do you focus on there?
Certainly. And so I always think back to the job posting when I applied for the role. Next month will actually be 3 years that I've been in this position. The two key words that stuck out and still stay with me are impact and execution. And so I focus on those things, impact and execution, in specific areas around talent development, strategy, culture, and engagement. And so again, coming straight from that job posting, I have long been an HR manager. I've been in HR 12 years now. And I've always, even though I didn't have the title of business partner, I've always felt that that was my approach to human resources, as opposed to being an HR manager. An HR manager oversees policies and procedures. I really try to build relationships with my leaders and then also be an advisor. And so I think that's the difference when you're able to focus in those areas of culture, strategy, talent, as opposed to many of the other things that are a part of human resources: safety, payroll, compensation, employee relations, et cetera. All of those things are important. But at McKesson, there are centers of excellence. There are other work streams where I can hand those things off to individuals that specialize in those areas, so that, again, I can maintain my focus and my strategic direction.
So how important is culture when building a workforce, especially at McKesson?
It's huge. At McKesson, we have values that we operate on. It's I too care and I lead. I too care is what we do in terms of our business. I lead is how we do it. And so when you're talking about culture, it's really important that those things drive our business. It drives our decisions, and we try to see it through every lens and every opportunity that we have. And so as it relates to that, it really is important that our employees can see it. Again, I mentioned the word demonstrated. Absolutely. And so we try to demonstrate that culture in our decisions and our communications, again, because we want to be accountable. We want to be developmental. We want to be enterprise first in everything that we do.
So if somebody is you're looking at a new candidate, what are some of the aspects that you're looking for in that person?
If you're talking about a new hire, when
Yes.
you say candidate, yes. And so it really has to be one that, again, demonstrates those attributes, and one that is willing to also lead from that perspective. And so it's really important for individuals to come into our organization being willing to work, being willing to put our associates first. I often say that, yes, as a leader, I may be accountable for certain aspects, but it is our employees that are responsible. It could be just getting the business out. It could be just serving our customers, because there are so many of our frontline employees that are customer facing. Right. I am not. And so we want individuals that are going to be genuine, open, honest, candid, but then also has that enterprise first, customer first mindset, because those are the things that align with what we do.
Well, and I think customer first is always a central focus. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of times people don't think about their career and career planning. So for somebody who's starting out or maybe making a shift like you did, what are some things that you could suggest to them regarding building that career itself?
It's important, and I think it's one thing that I speak to a lot as well when it comes to my mentorship. I think it's really important that an individual look at career planning, talent development as a two-way street. It's very similar to mentorship. You really have to come in with a mindset that you can't just leave career management to the organization's doing. That's how it's referred to from the organizational perspective, career management. But then there's also career planning that is the individual's responsibility. they have to take the onus. They have to make sure that they come with an agenda. They know what their target or in-game role may look like. Right. And then when you tie those two things together, that goes to talent development, career management, career planning. Again, a two-way street. Talent development is how you actually initiate what it is that you're asking for and then engage the organization right. to help you achieve it.
Yeah, I think people don't often think about career planning as something that they really need to take ownership of. Mm-hmm. So as we've gone through this wonderful pandemic, and really, I think HR has changed so much. Can you speak of what you see as some of the key things that really shifted during the last couple of years?
That is a great question, and shift is a good word. I actually joined McKesson the week of what I call the pandemic shutdown. March 9th was my first day. That was a Monday. That Thursday was voluntary work from home. 2 weeks later, it was mandatory work from home. And for HR, there was a shift around, I think for us, maybe I was new to McKesson, so I felt like it was elevated there versus maybe some of my previous stops. But we were really pushed to the forefront even more so because there was a lot of policy, a lot of changes that had to be instituted. Again, going back to I2 care, our principles, we really took it from we took it from a perspective of erring on the side of the employee. So we instituted, emergency paid sick leave is what we ended up doing, voluntarily, not through any, local or government mandate. And that really took what I would refer to is it took some control from our leaders, our site leaders, because our employees, when they didn't have to be positive. When they felt like they were sick, they could take off and they'd get paid. And for our leaders, that was a challenge. Again, that was a shift for them. But for HR, we really had to really embark down the path of emphasizing empathetic leadership. Yep. And then again, that erring on the side of the employee, because from a frontline perspective, there was no work from home from our material handlers, right. our order pickers, our delivery professionals who go into primary care, long-term care facilities on a daily basis. And so we really had to make sure that they were taken care for and supported. And that started with us supporting our leaders with that transition.
Well, it seems like you really put your values first and put them into action.
Exactly.
It's been suggested that workers are redefining what success is to include not only money and status, but also well-being. How is your company addressing this, and how do you see HR as a whole looking at that well-being aspect?
Another good question. Well-being and belonging are some hot topics, and I don't think they're more than just trendy. Right now, I think they're going to be here to stay.
I agree with you.
We've gone through a transition, a pivot from that perspective, where a lot of that control, maybe in a different way, has been taken back by associates, by our employees. And I think in a lot of ways, it's for their overall well-being. They're placing values. They've reassessed intrinsic versus extrinsic, what's most beneficial. And it's no longer about a title. Excuse me. It's no longer about title. It's no longer about compensation even. It's more so about work-life balance, flexibility. I want time with my loved ones, and this is one way to achieve it, even if that means I need to step back in terms of my career, or maybe that's a lateral move to the side. And so, those are the things that are changing. And from McKesson's perspective, we actually instituted what we refer to as Flex for Your Day prior to COVID.
Oh,
and so Flex for Your Day, not, as an exempt employee, if I have a doctor's appointment, I can carve out, me here for this podcast, I can carve out some time in my day to be able, and then I pick up the balance of my work in the evenings. Right. So I'm able to flex. But we instituted that also for our non-exempt population, so that when they have doctor's appointments, they need to flex. They can come in early, stay late. We're trying to allow for them to have flexibility in setting their schedule and know that it's not going to be any impact to them in terms of the business, but also in their take-home pay.
That's awesome that you're really, again, expressing the values in what you're actually putting forth.
Certainly.
So what other key trends do you see happening besides the idea of work-life balance?
A lot of it ties into that because you have this, I've seen it referred to as a great resignation, a great reevaluation.
Yes.
Is the term that I've used a lot lately, because folks are just reevaluating their status and what really is important to them. It's not really about status. I'll never forget, when I was responsible for an intern program when I worked for Genuine Parts Company. Within that intern program, we would make offers at the end of the program. We may have 20 some odd interns. Right. Probably 50-60% would turn over into FTEs. And I'll never forget making an offer to a young man, and he turned it down, even though we were offering more money. But it was because the other offer was a more senior title in his mind. And I guess for him, he wanted that title because it really wasn't about that first opportunity. It was about the next one. And so him having that title is what was going to help support him getting the better next title, as opposed to the title that we were offering. Again, despite our higher offer from a comp standpoint. And so it was, I think those are the type of things that are also shifting in these days and times. And I think this model around hybrid work versus remote,
yes.
There was a time where it was seen by a lot of senior leaders that if you weren't present, you weren't visible, it was perceived that you weren't working.
Right.
And so, again, prior to COVID, there were models that I've seen where productivity, if not flat, actually increased when you went to a hybrid model. And I think that's been proven out even more so. And, there are so many roles, again, outside of frontline. I can't decry the yeoman's work that a lot of our frontline folks have done over these last 2 to 3 years. But there are so many roles because it's really not about being present. It's about delivering quality work and it being on time.
No, it's true. I think the hardest part, though, is trying to still keep those networks going and still making those relationships. So how did you become, and I think you refer to yourself as a net weaver. Yes. I love that. Yes.
And so that's a term that I actually stole from a colleague of mine. But I want to say I first heard it at a SHRM Atlanta event. I've been here in Atlanta going on 9 years. And it was probably 2014, 2015. I remember going to a conference, in-person conference, of course, and that word was shared. And for me, the difference is I network for myself, but then I net weave for others. Yes. And so, again, I don't know if it's the passion around HR, the passion around mentorship. I really enjoy connecting people to what it is that they're looking to achieve, whether that's another opportunity. I know so many people that have tried to pivot into HR because that was my experience. Again, starting in retail management. Again, probably at that same SHRM conference, I do remember hearing that 73% of current, at least at that time, it could be higher or lower now. At that time, 73% of current HR professionals did not start their careers in HR. Oh, wow. And so, again, that pivot takes place from other functions. And so I try to connect and support individuals that are trying to make a similar pivot, or it could be the fact that they're underemployed, unemployed, but whatever that is, I try to connect people. And when I am out and about, you have an open position for a role. Well, I know someone that's looking for a role. They're looking to transition. They just got laid off. Whatever the case may be, I always look to connect those dots.
You're just always mentoring, aren't you?
Always.
I can feel it. Well, you're also the president and CEO of the Atlanta chapter of NAAAHR, which is the National Association of African Americans in Human Resources. How vital is that network and organization to someone's career?
Got it. Well, I have to admit, as of this recording, I just transitioned at the end of the month.
Well, we're still here, but
so immediate past president is my current role, but I have actually been an active member of NAAAHR since 2014. Started as a committee member, in 2015 or so. Became the co-vice president of the Plans and Professional Development Committee, which was the committee I started on. That committee is responsible for our programming, speakers, content, conferences, is what that committee was responsible for. And then that led to me being SVP and then senior vice president, then president as of March 2020. And so, that role really goes back to that networking, that net weaving. That's really where I kind of polished a lot of that, because, maybe compared to some other large associations, whatever they may be, NAAHR was very intimate. We would actually incorporate time in our chapter meetings to network, and you would get to know people outside of those just sitting at your table at an event. And you could stay connected to those individuals outside of the event. And so one of the best things that's happened to me is afforded me a lot of opportunity, a lot of exposure, which is one thing that I share with my mentees, that they really have to get exposure and experiences outside of education in order to grow and develop. And so NAAHR has been very vital in my career development as well.
Well, I think it's a great example of being an organization that's smaller instead of some of the bigger ones where you can really make significant connections.
Certainly.
What organizations would you suggest for someone that's wanting to get involved in HR, or maybe they're just trying to find out if this is right for them? Where would you suggest they go?
That's a great one. And there's a lot of organizations that not only I participate in personally, but as an organization in NAAHR, we actually partner with.
Oh, that's awesome.
And first, I'll say that NAAHR is a part of a national organization, and so we're the Atlanta chapter. But there are probably 20 plus chapters in most of your large metro areas, and so NAAHR Atlanta has partnered very closely with ATD, which is the Association of Talent Development. You have SHRM Atlanta, which I've also referenced, which is Society of Human Resource Management, again, the Atlanta chapter.
That's the one you usually hear about,
yes.
I think.
And that's the big one. I know we would always say we don't want to be the best kept secret anymore as far as NAAHR is concerned. But, Atlanta is the more national brand, if you will. And then the last organization that I'll mention, ATD also being a national organization, is Black in HR. Black in HR is another association that is growing, has a national footprint, and is one that we've partnered with here over the last 2 years or so. And really, Black in HR being more of a virtual entity, they've partnered with us to also offer in-person events, and that's really been a win-win.
Oh, that's awesome, because it will have a wider reach than just Atlanta.
Exactly.
So you're also involved with Black Excellence Be Empowered at McKesson, which is an employee resource group. Why are employee resource groups such a good investment of someone's time?
And this is such a timely discussion because as a part of Black History Month, yes. We actually have had some sessions around not only B, but also McKesson, when I joined, had 9 ERGs. My previous organization had 0. Well, maybe that's not true. Unofficially, they had 2.
Okay.
And so, when I look at the fact that when I joined, McKesson had 9, and in the 3 years, we've actually launched 3 additional. Wow. One which is just, I'd almost refer to it as non-denominational. So it's not really specific to any area, but then we also launched one for Native Americans and indigenous peoples. And we launched a third one that I'm drawing a blank on, forgive me.
That's okay.
But with these ERGs, you have a safe space to align with like-minded people, but then also hear diverse perspectives.
Yes.
Because ERGs, for those that may think they are exclusive, I actually believe they're the definition of inclusivity, because I am a member of our Hispanic ERG, our Women's Empowered ERG, and also emerging professionals. Again, going back to the mentorship. That I so enjoy. I don't qualify myself as an emerging professional anymore.
No, I don't think so.
But again, I like to support those individuals. And so, Black Excellence, the BERG is one very similar to those others where I'm able to join, participate. I'm actually looking forward to the Women's International Day. We've had some amazing speakers, and that's, I'm able to actually enjoy and learn and gain from those speakers from an ERG that's maybe outside of one that I could personally identify with.
Right. I think that whole idea with diversity and inclusion is actually educating yourself and finding out more and being an ally. And I think resource groups help you with that.
Those are such key words, Tyra. Yes.
So I've noticed a trend throughout your career that you like to volunteer.
I do.
So how do you think volunteering has helped you as your career, but also as you as a person?
It goes back to the experiences and exposure piece. I try to be diverse. I try to be an ally, and I think understanding underrepresented, those that may be underprivileged, because one thing that I haven't referenced yet, that I also serve on the cabinet of the African American Partnership of the United Way. And so with United Way, that's our focus there is around child well-being. So very different than what I do in my other areas, but something I'm also passionate about. And so it really helps to round out an individual's experience. It's things that I try to then impart on my two boys that are 12 and 13. I actually get them involved in those volunteer experiences because, there could be one that just say, I want it because daddy can get it.
Right.
But I want them to understand that there's individuals that have much, much less, and they would be happy with what dad wants to offer, even though you may want more. And so, again, I think it really goes back to rounding out an individual and making one whole and making one also humble.
I think that's awesome. I think it's great that you're getting your children involved so young, because I think volunteering is something that you can do throughout your life.
Certainly.
So as we're kind of coming to the end today, I would love to have some suggestions from you for our soon-to-be grads that are looking at human resources as a career.
Certainly. And so, HR, again, because of that pivot, that metric that I shared a little bit earlier, 73% of folks didn't start there. Don't think that, you have to be in a certain degree, come from a certain accreditation or have a certain background from an education standpoint in order to pivot into human resources. There are certain degree course selections that can actually be beneficial. But I would really make sure that you have a mindset around what is it you want to do and then volunteer in that area. Because that's what I tell folks that are looking to pivot into HR that may be coming from another. That's how you build that resume. That's what I was speaking to as my district manager was I'm a store manager for a paint company. But there are functions that I align myself with in order to gain those experiences, to improve my facilitation skills, in order to understand what true onboarding and training and development looks like and what's successful and what's not. And so you can gain those experiences. I kind of think back to that 70-20-10 rule. That's really how you go about it. 70% of it is experiences. 20% of it is making those connections, that networking and net weaving. And then only 10% of it is education. So you really have to position yourself in order to gain that other 90%. And so I would just encourage you to connect with individuals, identify companies, identify functions, quite honestly. I've given thought to being a specialist in learning and development, in diversity, equity, and inclusion. But when I really took some time and looked at what those specializations encompass, it wasn't at my core, because at my core, I mentioned I've always thought I was a business partner before I had that title, because I took that retail experience of relationship building. People buy from you because they like you.
Right.
So from an HR standpoint, that's my same approach. I'm not a black and white, by the book HR professional. I've worked with and for some folks like that, but I'm the type that I like Troy, so I have this issue, I need to pull him in. It makes it easier for leaders to do that because we also have relationships. And it's not just, I need to talk to Troy because I have a problem. I want to talk to Troy to avoid problems, to mitigate those problems. And that's my approach as a practitioner, and from a standpoint of really engaging my client groups and making sure that I am an asset, not a liability.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. I hope everybody understands the importance of volunteering, mentoring, and networking in their careers. Thank you so much, Troy.
Thank you, Tyra. Appreciate you.
Thank you for listening to Building Bold Connections. This has been a Coles College and Joel A. Katz Music and Entertainment Business Program production.